Husband kicked out his wife. 7 years later, she returned with twins and a secret that destroyed him. Picture a perfect scene, a fairy tale wedding with 1,000 guests, a stunning mansion, champagne glasses sparkling in the sunset. Robert Evans, heir to a billion-dollar pharmaceutical empire, stands at the altar waiting for his bride. Ashley, breathtaking in her $85,000 dress, slowly walks down the aisle while photographers capture her every step. That's when everyone hears it. Heads turn. Guests go pale. The groom freezes. A black helicopter lands on the immaculate lawn of the estate. The door opens, and out steps a woman everyone immediately recognizes. Emily Evans, the ex-wife. The woman who completely vanished exactly 7 years ago. But she's not alone. 2 children step out behind her. A boy and a girl, both around 7 years old, both with the unmistakable sapphire blue eyes of the Evans family. "Robert," she says, her voice amplified by a discreet microphone. "I'd like you to meet Oliver and Olivia Evans, your children." The billionaire's face drains of all color, because he knows. He knows these children are his. But what he doesn't know is that Emily didn't just come to reveal the existence of the twins. She came armed with a devastating secret. A secret so powerful it will destroy not just his marriage, but the entire empire his family built over 3 generations. A secret she's kept for 7 long years while plotting the perfect revenge. This is the story of a woman who was thrown out of her own home on a rainy night. A woman who lost everything. A woman who, from the ashes of humiliation, built an empire to take down those who betrayed her. This is the story of a revenge 7 years in the making. A secret so powerful it will destroy not just his marriage, but the entire empire his family built over 3 generations. A secret she's kept for 7 long years while plotting the perfect revenge. This is the story of a woman who was thrown out of her own home on a rainy night. A woman who lost everything. A woman who, from the ashes of humiliation, built an empire to take down those who betrayed her. This is the story of a revenge 7 years in the making. The sun was setting on the horizon, casting a golden light over the lush gardens of the Evans mansion. Champagne glasses clinked in the distance while society's elite celebrated what was supposed to be the wedding of the year. Robert Evans, heir to the Evans Pharmaceuticals empire, waited at the altar decorated with 1,000 white orchids. Ashley, stunning in her $85,000 Vera Wang dress, walked slowly down the aisle. That's when everyone heard it, the unmistakable sound of a helicopter cutting through the perfect afternoon sky. The guests turned in unison, some protecting their champagne flutes, others raising their smartphones to capture the unexpected scene. The black helicopter landed on the immaculate lawn, the wind from its blades messing up the perfectly arranged setting. A tense silence hung in the air as the door opened. Emily stepped out first. She, who had once been Emily Evans, now walked with authority across the lawn of the property that had once also been hers. Her impeccable white suit contrasted with the determination in her eyes that hadn't shed tears for Robert in years. But it wasn't Emily who stole the show. It was the 2 small figures who stepped out of the helicopter right after her. A boy and a girl, both approximately 7 years old, both with brown hair falling in perfect curls over their shoulders, and both, undeniably, with the unmistakable sapphire blue eyes of the Evans family. "Robert," Emily said, her voice amplified by a microphone discreetly placed on her suit. "I'd like you to meet Oliver and Olivia Evans, your children." The flashes from cell phones captured the exact moment when Robert Evans' face lost all color. 7 years before that fateful day, Robert and Emily Evans were Manhattan's golden couple. When they met in the main laboratory of Evans Pharmaceuticals, the attraction was immediate and overwhelming. He, the charismatic heir with a Harvard MBA, perfectly styled dark hair, and a smile that melted hearts. She, the brilliant biochemist, who had turned down offers from Stanford and Cambridge to dedicate herself to medical research that could save millions. I never considered love at first sight something rational, Emily had confessed in her speech at their lavish engagement dinner, until I met Robert and realized that some chemical reactions are simply inevitable. The wedding took place the following spring. 3,000 rare orchids imported from Thailand, an 8-tier cake, and champagne that cost more per glass than many earn in a day's work. The honeymoon stretched across 3 continents, and when they returned, they moved into the historic Evans mansion overlooking Central Park. In the mornings, they shared coffee while discussing scientific articles. In the evenings, they dazzled at charity events. Emily quickly became head of the research and development department, revolutionizing the company's cardiac medication line with patents worth billions. The business magazines called them the golden couple of pharmaceuticals. Too perfect to last. "We're trying to have children," Emily had confided to her assistant during lunch. "Robert will be a wonderful father. I can see it in his eyes when he plays with our friends' children. It's like something lights up inside him." The Evans mansion had already been prepared. A room transformed into a nursery, with a hand-painted ceiling reproducing constellations that glowed in the dark. Restored antique furniture, passed down through generations. A hand-carved rocking horse that had belonged to Robert himself. Everything was ready. Everything was perfect. Or at least, so it seemed. It was during their 3rd wedding anniversary party that Marcus brought Ashley to the Evans mansion for the first time. Marcus, Robert's best friend since school days, was the company's financial director and their wedding best man. His loyalty to Robert was unquestionable, or so everyone thought. "Robert, Emily, I'd like you to meet my sister, Ashley. She just moved from London and needs to meet the right people in New York," Marcus announced, bringing in a stunning woman in a red dress that looked like it had been painted onto her curves. Ashley had cat-like eyes, perfectly straightened blonde hair, and a way of laughing that made every man in the room turn his head. Except Robert, initially. "Charmed," Ashley said, air-kissing near Emily's face before turning to Robert with a lingering smile. "My brother speaks wonders about you two." In the months that followed, Ashley became a constant presence. There was always a reason: a charity dinner for which she needed company, an art event where she coincidentally ran into the couple, an emergency that led her to call Robert at 10 at night. "She's going through a rough patch," Robert defended, when Emily questioned him. "The divorce was messy, and Marcus is all she has in New York." Emily, generous by nature, opened the doors of her home and even helped Ashley get a job in the public relations department of Evans Pharmaceuticals. Ashley reciprocated with expensive gifts: a Hermes tie for Robert, an artisanal French perfume for Emily. "She's just being nice," Robert insisted when Emily commented on the increasingly personal gifts. It was on a rainy Thursday that Emily noticed the first lingering look. Robert and Ashley talking intimately in his office, their heads too close. Together, his eyes focused on her lips long enough to send a chill down Emily's spine. But Emily Evans wasn't the type to create stories in her own mind. She was a scientist. She needed evidence before jumping to conclusions. Evidence that would come sooner than she imagined. The storm raging over Manhattan that night seemed like an omen of what was to come. Emily drove home later than usual, eager to share with Robert a potentially revolutionary discovery in her research. Little did she know that another discovery awaited her. When Emily opened the mansion door, she found Robert in his study, with Marcus and Ashley. Robert's expression was unrecognizable, a mixture of anger, pain, and something more dangerous: absolute conviction. "How could you?" were his first words, his voice low and trembling. "What are you talking about, Robert?" Emily asked, letting her bag drop to the marble floor. Robert threw the phone onto the mahogany desk. "This Michael guy. How long has it been going on?" Emily's blood froze in her veins. Michael. What Michael? The messages were there, dozens of them, too intimate, too explicit, dated over the last 3 months. Emily looked at the phone as if it were an alien creature. This isn't my phone. These messages, Robert, this is some kind of mistake. Marcus watched Emily with his calculating eyes as she examined the clinical trial data for Evans Pharmaceuticals' new heart medication. Something didn't seem right about the numbers. These side effect rates seemed too low for an inhibitor of this type, Emily commented, frowning at the spreadsheets. We need to redo the test before submitting to the FDA. Marcus smiled calmly. The investors are getting impatient, Emily. We can't delay the launch now. Patients could suffer severe liver damage, Marcus. Some data here simply doesn't make sense. She pointed to discrepancies in the reports. That same night, Emily sent a detailed email to Robert expressing her concerns about the manipulated data. An email that Marcus intercepted before it reached its destination. It was the beginning of a meticulous plan. Meanwhile, Ashley put her part of the conspiracy into action. During a dinner at the Evans mansion, she discreetly swapped Emily's phone with an identical replica while the hostess prepared coffee in the kitchen. It's almost ready, Emily announced, returning to the room, not noticing the substitution. That night, Robert was the only one who seemed distant during dinner. Ashley touched his arm at every opportunity, while Marcus watched with a contained smile. 3 days later, the plan was completed. Marcus created a fake email account in the name of a certain Michael, supposedly a researcher from Emily's department. The messages were carefully crafted, suggesting a clandestine relationship that had been going on for months. Hotel photos were digitally manipulated, receipts forged. Are you sure about this? Ashley asked her brother as they observed the final work. Robert will be devastated. Marcus's smile was ice cold. It's a small price to pay. Emily is getting dangerously close to discovering what we did with the clinical data. And you're ready to comfort Robert, aren't you? On the fake phone, now back with Emily without her noticing, all the evidence was planted. The stage was set for the destruction of Emily Evans. On a stormy night, while Emily worked late in the laboratory, Marcus finally showed Robert the evidence of his wife's betrayal. It was then that Marcus presented the second part of the evidence: a man's watch found in Emily's car and a hotel key card dated the previous week. I found this in your car's glove compartment when you asked me to get your documents, Marcus explained, his voice a perfect simulation of regret. I'm sorry, Robert. I didn't want to believe it either. Ashley remained silent, her eyes lowered, in fake discretion, but a small smile threatened to form at the corner of her perfectly painted lips. Robert, I swear, someone's setting me up. Enough lies, Robert exploded, his voice echoing off the mansion walls. You betrayed, not just me, but everything we built, our company, our legacy, our company, Emily responded, the scientist giving way to the betrayed woman. I dedicated my life to this company. My patents saved lives while doubling profits, and apparently found time for other activities, Marcus commented smoothly, fueling Robert's anger. What happened next would remain etched in Emily's memory as the moment that divided her life into before and after. Robert, the man who had sworn to love her for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, ordered her to leave the house, immediately, in the pouring rain. You have 10 minutes to get your personal belongings, he said, his voice as cold as the marble beneath his feet. Anything left behind will be discarded. Robert, please don't do this. We need to talk. 9 minutes. With trembling hands, Emily went upstairs. She grabbed some clothes, photographs, her laptop. Tears mixed, with the rain still dripping from her hair. When she came down, Robert had already called the bank. Your accounts have been frozen, he informed her. The lawyers will contact you tomorrow. Don't try to speak with anyone from the company. Ashley, in a gesture of false compassion, offered an umbrella to Emily. You'll need this out there, Emily. looked at the three of them, her husband, his best friend, and the woman she now understood to be much more than a family friend. In her eyes, there were no more tears, only a budding determination. "One day, Robert Evans," she said, firmly refusing the umbrella with a gesture, "you will remember this moment and deeply regret it." The mansion door closed behind her with a final bang, leaving Emily alone under the merciless rain, not knowing that she carried within her not just her wounded dignity, but the future of the Evans family. Emily drove aimlessly through the wet streets of Manhattan, tears blurring her vision as the rain continued to fall. She parked in an alley near a 24-hour cafe, her body shaking not just from the cold, but from the shock of what had just happened. That's when the first wave of nausea hit her. Running to the cafe's bathroom, Emily vomited violently. As she washed, her face with cold water, a realization hit her like lightning. Her cycles had always been as regular as a Swiss watch, but she was 3 weeks late. With trembling hands, Emily bought a pregnancy test from the corner drugstore. The 2-minute wait seemed like an eternity as she sat in her car, the rain drumming on the roof like a reminder of the storm in her own life. 2 pink lines appeared, as clear as day. Emily was pregnant. A mix of emotions overwhelmed her: joy, despair, anger, determination. With trembling fingers, she typed a message to Robert. "I'm pregnant. We need to talk. This is your child." What Emily didn't know was that Marcus had installed spyware on Robert's phone. The message was intercepted and never reached its recipient. Instead, Marcus fabricated a cruel response. "I don't care whose child it is. Get a paternity test when it's born and then we'll talk." Reading these words falsely attributed to Robert, something broke inside Emily. But something stronger also formed, an unshakable resolution to protect her child and seek justice. A week later, at a medical appointment she paid for with the last dollars from her wallet, Emily received another surprising news. "Congratulations, Mrs. Evans," said the doctor, smiling at the ultrasound monitor. "Or should I say, double congratulations. You're expecting twins." Emily observed the 2 tiny pulses on the screen, each no bigger than a bean. 2 innocent lives that didn't ask to be born amid such chaos. 2 reasons for her to rise from the ashes, stronger than she'd ever been. "Twins," she whispered, gently, touching the screen. Oliver and Olivia. The names came instantly, as if they had been waiting for this moment. Oliver, the name of Robert's father, and Olivia, the name of Emily's mother who had passed away years before. In that moment, sitting alone in a low-cost clinic, homeless, jobless, and husbandless, Emily made a silent promise to her unborn children. "You will never go through what I'm going through now, and one day, your father will know the truth about you and everything else." In the weeks following her expulsion, Emily faced a brutal reality that went far beyond marital betrayal. Marcus had been meticulous in his plan to completely eliminate her. Emily discovered she was on an unofficial blacklist in the pharmaceutical sector. Each job interview ended the same way. "Your qualifications are impressive, Dr. Evans, but unfortunately the position has already been filled." Some interviewers were more honest. "I can't hire you," confessed a lab director in a low voice. "I received a call from Marcus Williams from Evans Pharmaceuticals. He implied that hiring you would be considered a hostile act against their company. We can't risk losing that contract." With her credit cards blocked and access to bank accounts denied by Robert's lawyers, Emily saw her personal savings rapidly dwindling. The small apartment she had temporarily rented soon became a luxury she could no longer afford. One particularly cold night, Emily slept in her car in a shopping center parking lot. She woke up shivering, her 3-month belly beginning to show under her coat. In that moment, looking at the fogged-up car window, Emily cried for the last time. "It's over," she said to her reflection. "This is the last day I'll be a victim." Meanwhile, At the Evans mansion, Robert was drowning himself in work and alcohol. The company was thriving under Marcus's new aggressive financial direction, who had convinced the board to launch the heart medication despite Emily's initial concerns. It was a masterstroke getting rid of that woman before she ruined everything. Marcus commented during a closed meeting with investors. Her excessive concerns about additional testing would have delayed the launch by at least a year. Ashley now occupied the place beside Robert at social events. Their closeness was justified as support during difficult times, but the tabloids were already speculating about a budding romance between the newly separated pharmaceutical magnate and the beautiful PR executive. He needs time, Ashley would tell her friends during expensive lunches paid for with her new generous salary. But I'm here for Robert, whatever role he needs me to play. Emily's isolation was complete. Without close family, with friends who chose Robert's side out of fear or convenience, pregnant and without resources, she had become invisible to the world that once celebrated her. It was in this moment of absolute despair that fate finally intervened in her favor. The supermarket. Parking lot was almost empty when Emily felt the first false contraction. 4 months pregnant, dehydrated and poorly nourished, she fainted beside her car, falling onto the cold asphalt. That's when Eleanor Jenkins, a 78-year-old lady, found her. "My God, dear, you need help." The gentle voice with a southern accent was the first thing Emily heard when she regained consciousness. Eleanor didn't ask many questions. She took Emily to her home, an old mansion on the outskirts of the city. "I was a nurse in the Vietnam War," she explained while preparing a nutritious broth. "I recognize someone in need of care when I see them." In the days that followed, Emily regained her physical strength. Eleanor listened to her story without judgment. "There's a friend you need to meet," Eleanor said after hearing everything. "Sarah Thompson. She runs a clinic for people without resources. She's a brilliant doctor who could have been rich, but chose another path." Dr. Sarah Thompson was everything Eleanor had described and more. A 60-year-old woman with perceptive eyes and an unwavering determination. Her clinic, located in a modest neighborhood, offered free care to those who couldn't afford medical treatment. "I need someone with your training," Dr. Thompson said after interviewing Emily. "Our patients deserve the same level of care that millionaires receive." Emily started working immediately. Her new office was tiny compared to the state-of-the-art laboratory she had headed, but for the first time in months, she felt useful again. It was during the analysis of patient data that Emily made an alarming discovery. Several clinic patients taking CardioLife, Evans Pharmaceuticals' new star medication, were showing severe liver problems. "This is strange," Emily commented to Dr. Thompson. "The side effect rate is much higher than the 0.1% declared by the company." "We've been seeing an increase in cases," the doctor confirmed, "but we don't have the resources to investigate properly." Emily requested access to the records of all patients using Evans medications. The pattern that emerged was unmistakable and devastating. "They manipulated the data," Emily concluded, showing the graphs to Dr. Thompson. "The drug causes liver damage in approximately 8% of users, not 0.1% as stated. If this is proven, the company would face billions in lawsuits," Dr. Thompson finished, "and criminal liability." It was then that Sarah Thompson revealed a secret. "I have a fully equipped laboratory on my property. It was funded by my late husband, who died because of a medication with undisclosed side effects. I can finance your research, Emily. We can develop a safer alternative." The look on Emily's face changed from surprise to determination. "Not just an alternative. We can create something better, cheaper, and more effective." "And what would be the name of this new pharmaceutical company?" asked Eleanor, who had joined them for afternoon tea. Emily smiled for the first time in months. "Phoenix Pharmaceuticals, because that's how I feel, rising from the ashes." Dr. Thompson's laboratory was far more impressive than Emily had imagined. Hidden beneath an ordinary-looking house in a quiet neighborhood, The underground space rivaled some of the best corporate laboratories Emily had ever known. "My husband was paranoid about privacy," Sarah explained, while showing the state-of-the-art equipment. "He built this place with security systems worthy of NASA." In the months that followed, as her belly grew, Emily worked tirelessly. She began by analyzing the CardioLife formula, identifying exactly why the drug caused liver damage. Then, she developed an alternative that not only eliminated this side effect, but also acted more quickly in the system. "We'll need rigorous clinical trials," Emily insisted. "We won't make the same mistakes as Evans." Sarah smiled. "I already have a network of independent doctors willing to conduct double-blind tests. Some of them were burned by Evans in the past and are eager to see an alternative on the market." On a rainy night in May, while finalizing the protocol for clinical trials, Emily felt the first real contraction. 16 hours later, Oliver and Olivia Evans were born in a university hospital, healthy and perfect. "They have his eyes," Emily whispered, holding the babies for the first time. There was no bitterness in her voice, just a renewed determination. One day they'll meet their father. But first, we have an empire to build. With Eleanor acting as a surrogate grandmother to the twins, Emily returned to work just 3 weeks after giving birth. Phoenix Pharmaceuticals was officially registered, with Emily using her maiden name, Emily Winters, as CEO. The first years were challenging. Competing with pharmaceutical giants was not a task for the weak. But Phoenix had 2 undeniable advantages: a truly superior product and Emily's brilliant scientific mind. With the help of a cybercrime specialist, Emily obtained forensic evidence that the messages on her phone had been remotely planted. The malicious program left digital traces that, although difficult to detect, were impossible to completely erase. Through carefully cultivated contacts within Evans Pharmaceuticals, Emily managed to obtain copies of crucial documents showing Robert's forged signatures on reports about known side effects. "Robert would never knowingly sign this," Emily murmured while examining the documents. "He may have his flaws, but he would never deliberately put lives at risk." At 3 years old, Oliver and Olivia would accompany their mother to the laboratory, on weekends playing in a specially adapted space while she finalized new formulas. Emily made a point of showing photographs of Robert to her children. "This is your daddy," she would say softly. "He's not with us now, but one day you'll meet him, and he'll love you. I'm sure of it." Phoenix's first big contract came when the twins were 4 years old. A network of independent hospitals, impressed with the exceptional results and affordable price of CardioShield, Phoenix's alternative to CardioLife, signed an exclusive agreement. Meanwhile, at Evans Pharmaceuticals, Marcus was beginning to notice an annoying loss of contracts to a new competitor. "Who the hell is this Phoenix?" he asked during a tense meeting. "And who is Emily Winters?" Robert, who was present, didn't make the connection with her maiden name, but for the first time in years, he mentioned his ex-wife's name. Emily would have loved to analyze their formula. She always had a talent for identifying weaknesses in competing medications. "Emily is in the past," Marcus cut in abruptly. "We need to focus on crushing this Phoenix before it becomes a real threat." Little did he know that Phoenix wasn't just a threat. It was a Trojan horse, carrying within it a revenge 7 years in the making. In parallel with Phoenix Pharmaceuticals' meteoric growth and the loving upbringing of the twins, Emily dedicated a specific part of her time to an extremely personal project: the meticulous building of an irrefutable case against Marcus and Ashley. In a locked room in her home, which the twins jokingly called Mom's secret office, Emily maintained a board covered with evidence, documents, and photographs, all interconnected by red lines. "It's like a puzzle," she explained to Dr. Thompson, who had become her closest confidant. "Each piece in isolation might seem circumstantial, but together they tell a devastating story." Emily discreetly hired an ex-FBI agent specialized in corporate fraud. "I don't want revenge," she told him during their first meeting. "I want justice, and for that, we need evidence admissible in court." The investigation revealed much more than Emily had expected. Marcus hadn't just fabricated false evidence against her or manipulated medication safety data. He had created an elaborate network of offshore accounts where he diverted more than $80 million from Evans Pharmaceuticals shareholders. Through contacts at the luxury barbershop Robert frequented, Emily discovered something even she hadn't anticipated. Robert was being slowly poisoned. Hair analyses showed increasing levels of arsenic. Not enough to kill, but certainly enough to impair his cognition and make him more susceptible to manipulation. They want total control, Emily concluded, horrified. Marcus never just wanted to remove me from the equation. He wants the entire company. Ashley, meanwhile, left a trail of evidence of her complicity. Arrogant emails to Marcus, boasting about how Robert was eating out of her hand. Records of suspicious bank deposits coinciding with the launch of questionable medications. Even a digital diary where she detailed parts of the plan against Emily. "She's not as smart as she thinks," commented Eleanor, who surprisingly revealed herself to be an excellent psychological profiler. Narcissistic people often document their triumphs they can't resist. With each new discovery, Emily refined her dossier. By the twins' 6th birthday, she had finally built an irrefutable case: large-scale corporate fraud, deliberate manipulation of clinical data, massive financial diversion, document forgery, and attempted poisoning of the CEO. This was the weapon she was saving for the perfect moment, the devastating secret that would not only expose the truth, but completely destroy those who had harmed her. "When?" Eleanor asked during the twins' birthday party, watching Oliver and Olivia blow out the candles. Emily smiled enigmatically. "When the moment is perfect, and believe me, we'll know exactly when that will be." The perfect moment would come sooner than she imagined. In just 5 years, Phoenix Pharmaceuticals transformed from an obscure startup into one of the fastest-growing pharmaceutical companies in the market. The shares, which Emily had initially kept private, were now worth 10 times their original value after a limited public offering. CardioShield had become just the first in a line of revolutionary medications. Phoenix developed safer and more affordable alternatives to the industry's most profitable drugs, and hospitals across the country were replacing Evans Pharmaceuticals products with Phoenix's. "This quarterly report is alarming," Marcus announced during an emergency board meeting at Evans. "We've lost 28% of our market share in cardiac medications to Phoenix. Their prices are 30% lower than ours, and their efficacy rates are superior." Robert, who looked older than his 45 years, rubbed his temples. The constant health problems in recent years, which he attributed to stress, had taken their toll. "Who is this Emily Winters? Any information about her background?" Ashley, now marketing director and Robert's fiancée, quickly intervened. "She rarely appears in public. There aren't many photos of her, and her professional history before Phoenix seems to have been deliberately erased." What none of them knew was that Emily had meticulously calculated every move. Phoenix deliberately targeted Evans' most profitable products, especially those with covered-up safety issues. Emily knew exactly where Evans was most vulnerable because she knew the skeletons hidden in the corporate closet. Meanwhile, the twins, now 6 years old, were growing up intelligent and curious like their mother. Oliver showed a natural aptitude for science, often asking to help with the safe experiments Emily set up for him. Olivia, on the other hand, was proving to be a born negotiator, able to convince practically any adult to give her another slice of cake. "They have the best of both of us," Emily commented to Eleanor as she watched the twins playing in the garden of the mansion they now called home. An impressive property, though Emily had made sure it wasn't ostentatious. Robert's intelligence combined with my persistence. The press began to notice the Phoenix phenomenon. An influential medical journal published a comparative article between CardioShield and CardioLife, highlighting the superiority of the former. "In all aspects, Evans's stock value dropped 15% in a single day. We need to figure out how they're doing this," Marcus demanded, slamming his fist on the table during a particularly tense meeting. It's impossible they develop such a superior formula without some kind of industrial espionage. Ashley suggested an aggressive public relations campaign, insinuating that Phoenix's medications hadn't undergone rigorous testing, an irony that would have made Emily laugh, since Phoenix's testing protocols were much more rigorous than Evan's. It was then that fate delivered to Emily the perfect moment she had been waiting for. Marcus, in a desperate attempt to regain market share, announced Robert and Ashley's official engagement with a luxurious wedding planned for 3 months later. The chosen date? Exactly 7 years after the day Emily had been expelled from the Evans mansion. 7 years, Emily murmured, looking at the wedding invitation that her contact inside Evans had discreetly sent. They really have no idea who they're provoking. The news of Robert and Ashley's imminent wedding was widely publicized in business and social media. Marcus had transformed the event into a spectacle, inviting important industry figures, influential politicians, and even celebrities. It would be, in Ashley's words to a luxury magazine, the social event of the year. Emily called a meeting with her most trusted team: Eleanor, Dr. Thompson, the ex-FBI agent, and her corporate attorney. "The time has come," she announced, opening a folder full of documents. "Their wedding will be held exactly 7 years after the day I was unjustly expelled. They either chose this date deliberately, or the universe has a peculiar sense of humor. But either way, it's the perfect moment." The plan was meticulously detailed. Each move was timed, every contingency anticipated. Emily didn't just want exposure. She wanted a complete and irrefutable capitulation. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emily contacted the FBI, providing evidence of Marcus's embezzlement. Investigators began working discreetly, collecting additional evidence without alerting the targets. 1 week before the wedding, Emily sent the FDA a detailed report on the falsifications of safety data, including testimonies from former Evans employees who had been silenced with confidentiality agreements. And, on the night before the big day, Emily had a crucial conversation with her children. "Tomorrow you're going to meet your father," she explained gently as she sat them on her bed. "It's important for you to understand that he didn't know about you. Bad people told him lies, and that's why we couldn't be together." "Will he like us?" asked Olivia, always direct. "He'll love you," Emily answered sincerely. "As soon as he sees you, he'll know you're his children. You have his eyes." "What if he still believes the lies?" questioned Oliver, the more cautious of the two. Emily smiled calmly. "That's why we have all this evidence. Sometimes people need to see the truth with their own eyes to believe it." On the morning of the wedding, the helicopter was ready. Emily wore an impeccable white suit, a deliberately symbolic choice. The twins were elegantly dressed, nervous, but excited about the adventure. "Remember," Emily said while adjusting her children's bow ties, "you are Evanses. Keep your heads high and your shoulders back. No matter what happens, you are loved and protected." The helicopter took off, carrying them toward the Evans mansion, where hundreds of guests were already gathering for what promised to be a fairy tale wedding. Little did they know they were about to witness something very different. A story of poetic justice 7 years in the making. As they flew over the city, Emily looked at her children and then at the secure folder in her lap, containing the complete dossier. Inside was the secret that would destroy Robert, not with violence or cruelty, but with truth. A truth he should have sought 7 years ago. The sound of the helicopter cutting through the sky made all the guests turn simultaneously. The ceremony was about to begin, with Robert at the altar and Ashley a few minutes away from making her triumphant entrance. Marcus was the first to realize what was happening. His face paled when he saw the helicopter landing on the property's immaculate lawn. He whispered something urgent to Robert, who frowned in confusion. When the helicopter door opened and Emily emerged, a murmur ran through the crowd. Many of those present recognized her instantly. the former Mrs. Evans, who had disappeared from the social map 7 years ago after rumors of infidelity. "What is she doing here?" Ashley hissed, watching the scene from a second-floor window, still in her wedding dress. "Marcus, do something." But Marcus was frozen, his eyes fixed not just on Emily, but on the 2 children who exited the helicopter right behind her. Emily walked confidently across the lawn, the twins hand in hand with her. The silence was absolute as she approached the altar. A few meters away, she stopped. "Hello, Robert," she said, her voice amplified by the discreet microphone. "There's someone you should meet." Robert's eyes widened when he looked at the children. The boy had his chin, his nose. The girl had his smile. And both had the unmistakable sapphire blue eyes of the Evanses. "Impossible," he murmured, staggering slightly. "Oliver, Olivia," Emily said softly. "This is your father, Robert Evans." Oliver, always the more formal, extended his hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir." Olivia, less formal, asked directly, "Why did you never come visit us?" A celebrity photographer at the event captured the exact moment when Robert Evans fell to his knees, his face a mask of shock and recognition. Marcus stepped forward, trying to control the situation. "This is a private invasion. Security." "I wouldn't do that," Emily warned, gesturing to her own strategically positioned security team. "Not when FBI agents are on their way. They have very interesting questions about certain offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Marcus." At that moment, the first black cars began to arrive. Federal agents emerged, heading not toward Emily, but directly to Marcus. "But that's just the beginning," Emily continued, now speaking to the stunned guests. 7 years ago, I was thrown out of this house based on lies fabricated by Marcus and Ashley, false messages planted on my phone, forged evidence. She opened her folder, removing documents that were projected onto a large screen her assistants had discreetly set up. "I am Emily Winters," she revealed. "CEO of Phoenix Pharmaceuticals, the company that has systematically outperformed Evans in recent years. And I have evidence not just of the conspiracy against me, but of something much more serious." The evidence was methodically presented. Falsification of clinical data, Robert's forged signatures, suppressed side effect reports, embezzlement, and finally, Robert's gradual poisoning. "Your hair contains elevated levels of arsenic, Robert," Emily explained, showing the analyses. "Not enough to kill, but enough to affect your judgment and health. Ask yourself who prepared your tea every morning for the past 5 years." Ashley, who had finally come downstairs in her wedding dress, stopped abruptly. The guests turned to her, many instinctively moving away. "This is absurd," she shouted, but her face betrayed genuine panic. "We found the arsenic in your vanity, Ashley," Emily calmly informed, "along with your diary detailing the plan to take over the company after Robert's convenient health collapse." It was the moment when Marcus tried to flee, only to be detained by FBI agents. Ashley, seeing her world crumbling, tried one last, desperate tactic. "Robert, you won't believe her. She's lying just like she lied about that affair." But Robert Evans was no longer listening to Ashley. His eyes were fixed on the twins, his children, that he never knew existed. Years of confusion and physical discomfort began to make sense. The pieces fit together with devastating clarity. Chaos erupted on the Evans property. Horrified guests watched as Marcus was handcuffed and taken away by federal agents. Ashley screamed, trying to pull her arm from another agent's firm grip. Photographers captured every moment of the spectacle, ensuring the scandal would make headlines the next day. Amid the confusion, Robert remained kneeling on the lawn, looking at the twins as if he were seeing ghosts. "How?" he finally managed to ask, his voice breaking. "How did I not know?" Emily approached, handing him an envelope. "I tried to tell you," This is the original message I sent when I discovered the pregnancy. Marcus intercepted it, just like all my other attempts to contact you." Robert read the message with trembling hands. The date was clear. Just 2 weeks after Emily's expulsion. She had tried to inform him immediately. He began, unable to complete the sentence. "I know," Emily replied softly. "For a long time I thought you knew and didn't care. Only recently did I discover the full extent of their manipulation." At that moment, another car arrived. Health department officials emerged with official documents. "Due to evidence of fraud and deliberate falsification of safety data," announced an official, "all Evans Pharmaceuticals products are temporarily suspended pending a full investigation." For Robert, this revelation was another devastating blow. In a matter of minutes, he had lost his fiancée, his best friend, and potentially his company, which had been built by 3 generations of his family. Emily watched the understanding settle on Robert's face. The secret that destroyed him wasn't just the existence of the twins or the betrayal of his closest confidants. It was the fact that, under his leadership, Evans Pharmaceuticals had become a company that prioritized profits over human lives. That his family legacy could end in complete disgrace. "It's over," Robert murmured, his hands covering his face in despair. It was then that Emily did something no one expected. She knelt beside Robert, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It's not over yet," she said quietly, just for him to hear. "It doesn't have to end like this." The twins, sensing the gravity of the moment, approached timidly. Oliver extended a small object to Robert, a miniature microscope he always carried as a charm. "Mom said you gave me one of these when you were little," he explained. "Said that's when you decided you wanted to make medicine to help people." Robert looked at the small microscope, then at Emily with a silent question in his eyes. "They know everything about you," she confirmed. "The good parts. I always made sure they knew their father was a good man who was deceived by bad people." Tears were flowing freely down Robert's face now. He extended a trembling hand, almost touching Oliver's face, but hesitated, as if afraid the twins would disappear. "May I?" he asked Emily. She nodded, and Robert gently touched his son's face, then his daughter's. "You're real," he whispered. "You're mine." "And they're brilliant," Emily added. "Oliver already shows an extraordinary talent for science. Olivia is our little negotiator. They have the best of both of us, Robert." Amid the confusion around them, they formed a small island of calm, a broken man discovering the family he didn't know he had. "Emily," Robert finally said, "what happens now?" It was the question that would lead to the final phase of Emily's plan. Not just revenge, but a form of redemption that no one had anticipated. In the weeks following the disastrous, almost wedding, the Evans pharmaceutical empire was on the verge of collapse. The federal investigation revealed the full extent of Marcus and Ashley's crimes, resulting in multiple criminal charges for both. Shareholders panicked, and stock values plummeted. Robert spent days reviewing all the evidence Emily had collected. Falsified reports with his forged signatures, manipulated clinical data, the results of his hair tests, confirming chronic arsenic poisoning. And most devastating, the evidence that Marcus had deliberately sabotaged any chance of contact between him and Emily after the separation. "I should have trusted you," he said during one of their many private meetings. "I should have at least heard your side of the story." "You were vulnerable," Emily replied without bitterness. "Marcus was your childhood friend. Ashley was charming and manipulative, and they planted convincing evidence." Most of these meetings took place at Emily's new home, a spacious but cozy property with a basement laboratory where the twins frequently helped with safe experiments. Robert marveled at the life Emily had built for their children. "They're happy," he observed one afternoon, watching Oliver and Olivia playing in the garden. "They always have been," Emily confirmed. I never allowed our situation to deprive them of a full childhood. Robert's relationship with the twins developed slowly, with moments of genuine connection alternating with the inevitable initial awkwardness. Olivia, direct as always, frequently tested the limits of her newly discovered father. "Why did you believe those bad people instead of Mommy?" she asked during a board game. Robert hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Because I made a terrible mistake. Sometimes adults make huge mistakes, even when they should know better." The answer, apparently, satisfied Olivia, who nodded solemnly. "Mommy says recognizing mistakes is the first step to fixing them." Oliver, meanwhile, connected with Robert through shared interests: science, experiments, and especially the family business legacy. "What's going to happen to Grandpa's company?" he asked one day, surprising Robert with his knowledge of family history. "I don't know," Robert admitted. "It's in big trouble now." It was this conversation that led to Emily's unexpected proposal. One evening, after the twins were asleep, she presented Robert with a bold plan. A merger, she suggested, unrolling architectural plans and financial projections. "Phoenix and Evans, combining our advanced research with your production infrastructure, eliminating the problematic medications, replacing them with safer alternatives, saving jobs and, more importantly, your family's legacy." Robert studied the proposal with amazement. "You planned this too? As part of your revenge?" Emily smiled. "No, this part came later. When I realized that destroying Evans would harm thousands of innocent employees and patients who depend on legitimate medications from the company. True revenge isn't destruction, Robert. It's transformation." The merger proposal faced initial resistance from both companies' boards. But Emily and Robert, working together, presented an irrefutable case. Phoenix had the patents and immaculate reputation. Evans had the production capacity and global distribution. Together, they could not only survive, but thrive ethically. In the months that followed, while negotiations continued, the family relationship evolved at its own pace. Robert became a constant presence in the twins' lives, attending school presentations, participating in family dinners, and occasionally spending weekends with them. "They're getting attached to you," Emily commented, observing how the twins now ran to the door when Robert arrived. "And I to them," Robert replied softly. "More than I thought possible." There were difficult moments, of course. Painful flashbacks of betrayal, bitter memories of separation, tense conversations about the lost years that could never be recovered. But there were also moments of healing, for all of them. A year after the fateful day of the interrupted wedding, the Evans Winters, family gathered for a special celebration, the twins' 8th birthday. The garden was decorated with balloons and ribbons. An elaborate cake in the shape of a scientific laboratory occupied the center of the table, and a small crowd of friends, colleagues, and family members was present. Among the guests were Eleanor, now officially the twins' adoptive grandmother, and Dr. Thompson, whose vision and funding had made Phoenix Pharmaceuticals possible. Robert chatted animatedly with both, his appearance healthier than it had been in years since the chronic poisoning had ceased. Emily observed the scene with a sense of serene accomplishment. She wore a simple but elegant dress, her hair loose, in the wind, a confident woman who had finally found balance after years of struggle. "You achieved more than revenge," Eleanor commented, approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. "You built something new from the ruins." Emily smiled, accepting the glass. "It wasn't the original plan," she admitted. "But perhaps it was a better one." The previous week, the Evans-Phoenix merger had finally been approved by shareholders and regulatory bodies. The new entity, Phoenix Evans Pharmaceuticals, was already being acclaimed as a new model for the industry, combining scientific innovation with ethical responsibility and affordable prices. Robert had found a new purpose as the ethics and compliance director of the merged company, working to ensure that the shady practices of the past would never be repeated. Emily maintained her position as research and development director, while sharing CEO responsibilities with an experienced and trusted executive. Marcus and Ashley, meanwhile, faced separate trials on multiple charges, from financial fraud and falsification of clinical data to attempted homicide by chronic poisoning. The evidence was irrefutable, and both faced decades in prison. "Daddy," Olivia's voice cut through Emily's thoughts. "Come see what Oliver and I made." Robert, still surprised and moved each time he heard the word "daddy," immediately followed to the small laboratory set up in the corner of the garden, where the twins had prepared an elaborate scientific experiment. Emily observed the interaction with warmth in her heart. There was no longer that initial hesitation between the twins and Robert. Now there was a comfortable familiarity, a genuine connection. "Just Emily, please," she responded with a smile. "I kept my professional name. It's less confusing for clients and investors." Thomas nodded, offering his arm. "Would Dr. Evans Winters do me the honor of this dance?" A small band played in the garden, and some guests were already moving to the rhythm of the soft music. Emily accepted the invitation, allowing herself to be led to the improvised dance area. "The twins seem happy," Thomas commented as they danced, and Robert too. Emily looked to where Robert and the twins were, all three laughing at some shared joke. "Yes, they are. It took time, but we've reached a good place." "And you?" Thomas asked, his eyes meeting hers. "Are you happy, Emily?" The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. In recent months, their relationship had slowly blossomed, with care and respect. Thomas understood Emily's complex past and never pressured her. "I am," she answered honestly. "More than I ever thought would be possible again." From across the garden, Robert watched Emily and Thomas dancing. There was no jealousy in his gaze, only quiet acceptance. His relationship with Emily had evolved into a respectful partnership centered on their children and the company they now shared. Both had agreed that the romance between them belonged to the past, but that they could build a new kind of family for their children. "Daddy, does Mom like Dr. Tom?" Olivia asked with her characteristic frankness. Robert smiled, embracing his daughter by the shoulders. "I think so, Princess. And that's good, isn't it?" Olivia thought for a moment, then nodded solemnly. "He does. Cool experiments with us. And he makes Mom smile." "Yeah," Robert agreed, observing Emily's illuminated face as she laughed at something Thomas had said. "And your mother deserves to smile a lot." Oliver, always the more perceptive one, joined the conversation. "But you're still our dad. That doesn't change." Robert felt his heart expand with an emotion that still caught him by surprise sometimes. "I always will be," he promised, hugging both children. "Nothing will ever change that." As the party continued around them, Emily and Thomas joined Robert and the children. Together, they sang Happy Birthday, applauded when the twins blew out the candles, and laughed when Oliver, always the scientist, explained the chemical reaction that made the cake glow in the dark. Watching the scene, Eleanor commented to Dr. Thompson, "It's not a conventional family, but it works, doesn't it?" Sarah Thompson smiled, her wise eyes reflecting decades of life experience. "The best families are rarely conventional, Eleanor. They're the ones built with intention, forgiveness, and conscious love." The main auditorium at Columbia University was packed. In the front row, Emily and Robert sat side by side, their faces displaying the same look of unbridled pride. Beside Emily was Thomas, now her husband of 5 years, holding her hand affectionately. On stage, a 15-year-old girl with sapphire blue eyes adjusted the microphone. "My name is Olivia Evans Winters," she began, her clear and confident voice echoing through the auditorium. "And today I'm presenting our research on a new method of drug delivery for neurodegenerative diseases." Next to her, her twin brother, Oliver, organized slides on a laptop. His eyes, identical to his sister's and father's, were focused on the task. The audience was a fascinating mix: university students, renowned professors, pharmaceutical executives, and even some patients in wheelchairs, all united by interest in an extraordinary discovery made by two prodigious teenagers. The idea came during a conversation with our father about the limitations of the blood-brain barrier, Olivia continued, briefly smiling at Robert. And our mother helped us develop the initial methodology in her home laboratory. In the audience, Emily discreetly wiped away a tear. Phoenix Evans Pharmaceuticals had become the world's largest, ethically oriented pharmaceutical company, revolutionizing access to essential medications. But none of that compared to the pride she felt in this moment. Some people ask me what it's like to have famous scientist parents, Olivia continued. But the most important thing I learned from my parents wasn't science. It was integrity. It was forgiveness. It was how to rebuild something beautiful from the ashes of something broken. Robert briefly squeezed Emily's hand, a gesture of silent acknowledgement between them. The path hadn't been easy. Co-parenting, new relationships, the complicated legacy of the past. But together, they had created something extraordinary from destruction. On stage, Oliver took the microphone. Our mother taught us that true revenge isn't destroying your enemies, he said with wisdom beyond his years. It's building something so magnificent, so undeniably valuable, that those who tried to destroy you become irrelevant. In the last row of the auditorium, a middle-aged woman dressed discreetly observed the scene. Eleanor, now almost 90 but still formidable, smiled at Dr. Sarah Thompson beside her. "Who would have thought," she whispered, that young, homeless pregnant woman I found in a parking lot would change the world of medicine and raise two geniuses?" Sarah smiled. "I would. The moment I met her, I knew Emily Winters was a force of nature." On stage, the Evans-Winters twins continued their presentation, explaining how their new drug delivery method could potentially treat Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS with unprecedented effectiveness. And in the front row, Emily watched her children with the deep knowledge that all the pain, every tear, every moment of despair along the way had been worth it. The husband who had unjustly expelled her had become a dedicated co-parent. The company that almost destroyed lives now saved them. And the twins she carried alone on that rainy night were now about to change the world. Emily's revenge hadn't just been destroying those who harmed her. It had been creating something so extraordinary from their ashes that her story would become legendary. Like the phoenix, she had risen from the ashes, stronger, wiser, and infinitely more powerful than those who tried to destroy her could ever have imagined.